Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we contemplate this extraordinarily profound question of how we age in a time of collective crisis. Several months ago, we had a gerontologist from Germany, Bettina Wickers, who spoke to us about the aging process. At the end of that session, we had a short dialogue about whether it would be accurate to say that we were in a state of collective dementia, given what is happening now in the Western civilization, in the war in Ukraine, and in some of the other factors that demonstrate almost incontrovertibly that the leadership in the Western world is no longer capable of the ruthless realism necessary for astute political decision-making, and a public that seems to be characterized more by lethargy and inflexibility of mind than the kind of resilience required for navigating successfully in a turbulent and very complex world. It's worth just bearing in mind as we open up this subject a couple of observations that have been made by philosophers and mystics and spiritual seers over the millennia, that there are certain cycles of time that characterize the ebb and flow of human events. If you remember your Hesiod from ancient Greek, he talks about the golden age and then a silver age and then a bronze age and then an iron age. And that the epic battle of Troy was during a gold silver age, and now the Greeks had descended into an iron age. You may remember the Upanishadic traditions in India that talked about the various eons of time, culminating in a nadir point of what they call the Kali Yuga age, and that we were in the Kali Yuga age of where the impulse of the gold and the silver deconstruct and dissipate away until humanity is gripped by the kind of both ignorance, iniquity, malfeasance, and incompetence that seems to characterize our world. It was Otto Spengler, the great German historian and philosopher in the 1920s, just 100 years ago, that wrote his epic work on the decline of the West and the prediction that we in Western civilization were succumbing to a moral turpitude, he said, that would not be able to satisfactorily cope with the rising of the East and the complexities of an industrial modernity. And it was in the aftermath of his prophetic work that Europe succumbed to the carnage of war, out of which came the Cold War, and as we've been seeing more recently, the rise of the East. So when we think about dementia, it's certainly something that characterizes some elderly people as they progress through the years. It's a very complex phenomenon. It's a phenomenon that's rising, certainly in the United States, and I understand in parts of Europe. But it also pertains to the collective journey of civilizations and peoples as they traverse the historical the moment that gives rise to them and then pulls them down in this inevitable cyclic pattern of living and dying. So when I began to have these discussions with Bettina, I realized that we needed to have her back onto Humanity Rising to really deeply explore this very complex interactivity between the personal and the collective, but also to accentuate how those of us of all ages who are growing closer to our death, as David Whyte put it, the great poet. Each day, he says, we grow younger toward our death. How do we understand dementia, the breakdown of the psyche and mind, individually and collectively? And how do we fortify ourselves to navigate through these shoals in a successful and abundant way? So Bettina, please open up your video. She's a gerontologist, as you all know, and has spent a professional lifetime studying these matters. She's going to make a presentation, and then in the aftermath of that, I'll circle back and we'll dialogue for the balance of the time. But Bettina, welcome to Humanity Rising.
Thank you, Jim. So I will share my screen. Oops. Oh. Sorry, I have to start again. Okay, so yeah. Yeah, thank you, Jim, for the introduction and the context to my previous presentation. I will today not dive so deep into the dementia aspects like I talked about the last time, and I will not go into my own story with dementia study, but everybody who has not listened to that, it was the podcast number 1006, and there is more information about my perspectives on the dementia and the dissolution of the self. So today I will go more into the collective aspects. And yes, this presentation results out of the discussion with Jim, and especially the idea for this topic came up in me when I listened to his talk at the beginning of my last presentation, where he talked about the crisis between the Israelis and Palestinians. The word is always difficult for me in English, sorry, Palestina. And I thought that there are similarities to my understanding of what is the evolutionary potential of aging. And so, yes, we wrote, and now I'm back again here and want to talk a bit about that a little bit. I will first read some quotes. I will start with some quotes, and the first quote is from Jim, and where he quoted 6 weeks ago Gabor Mate. Gabor Mate, I think most of you will know him. He's a doctor from Canada and a trauma specialist, a trauma expert. And he was interviewed about the situation in Israel and Gaza. And yeah, I read it. At the end of the interview, Gabor Mate, was asked by the interviewer, "So how do you hold this? How do you hold the unspeakable?" And I think all of us are in that situation with Gaza. How do we hold the unspeakable? And Gabor made a beautiful, beautiful statement. he says, all you can do is let the feelings flow through you in a spirit of compassion. Compassion for the Palestinians, compassion for the Israelis, compassion for the Americans, compassion for the Lebanese, the Iranians, the Houthis. And let the feelings just flow. Don't try to keep them away. Don't try to exaggerate them. Just be with the horror. And our capacity to be with the horror in an extraordinarily mystical and incomprehensible way is what allows redemption to emerge, even if it's in only our own souls. And this quote reminded me of another quote, which I used in an article I wrote some months ago about the evolutionary potential of aging in times of crisis. And this is a quote from Otto Scharmer and Eva Pomeroy. Otto Scharmer, I think most of you will know him. He wrote the theory, or developed the theory U, and is the founder of the Presencing Institute. And he developed this presencing technique where you go into this presencing and try to sense from the source or the field, and which is about leading yourself or other people from an emerging future. And it's a new article of the both. It's about the fourth person, the knowing of the field. And the quote goes, in the context of polycrisis and systemic collapse, the primary challenge we face is a widely shared sense of collective depression, a lack of agency in regard to the bigger picture. And I was reminded about this quote because they're referring here to the collective depression. And I always have this expression of collective dementia in my mind. So I found this very, very, very suitable to my thoughts. And the question they ask in this article is, what does it take to serve evolutionary transformation in the face of this collapse? And in my article, I transformed this question a little bit and asked, what does it take to serve evolutionary transformation in the field of elderhood in the face of this collapse? And now I will quote myself, because about humanity in a collective state of dementia. This is really an idea I have really very often, and this is from the description for this talk today, and I would like to read this too, because I think I put it there quite good. At the moment, humanity is in a collective state of dementia, disoriented, confused, full of anxiety, shame, fear, trauma reactivation. And as it is discussed in spiritual traditions, we are in the possible final state of the Kali Yuga. I'm not sure about if we are really in the final state. There are several different dates named. I listened to an astrologer last week. She said that the Kali Yuga will end in March 2025, but I'm not sure if we really can make such a precise date, but we will see. Yeah, we are in the possible final state of the Kali Yuga, which could be understood as a collective cosmic dementia process, a collective forgetting of the divine nature of this existence. And this is something I see in the individual dementia too, that people are more and more forgetting the divine nature of their own existence, and that thesis in the Kali Yuga and in society, in the collective too. And due to this cosmic or collective dementia process, we are more and more in a regression into an ever more constricted pre-personal collective consciousness. And yeah, I think we can talk later about that, Jim, if we can really diagnose a more and more pre-personal collective consciousness. But yeah, it will be interesting. So I'm a gerontologist, and always, even in spirituality or in all these fields, I ask for the role and responsibility of the elderly. And this is also a description out of the description for today. As older people, we play an important role in this context of collective crisis, in this context of collective dementia. And in this respect, we remain responsible for the development of our consciousness, even in old age. No one can take this task away from us, even not in dementia. And our immediate environment, as well as the collective consciousness itself, depends on us to fulfill this task until the last moment. To be responsible citizens, elders, grandparents, role models, peacemakers. And when our lives, the creative impulse interwoven within us, are fulfilled, to make the final contribution to solving the crisis of our time. Letting go. So now I wanted to go a step back, because I think I have some challenging perspectives onto the possibilities and the potentials of aging. But I think a lot of people will see more the obstacle in aging than the potential for consciousness development. Because in media, and especially also in social media, there is often an unquestioned equation of advanced aging, with increasing physical decline, frailty, loneliness, increasing forgetfulness, an increasing withdrawal in general, a reduced resources of various kinds, and of course, dementia. At the moment, we have 55 million people diagnosed with dementia in the world, according to the World Health Organization from 2023. And there are 10 million new diagnoses every year worldwide. So we are really in a collective dementia process. And this is there's a huge media campaign. They're talking a lot about dementia, and I'm not sure if this is really good for our collective consciousness. So these facts about this more deficit approach, more disengagement approach onto dementia, these facts make it seem ethically inappropriate to appeal to the responsibility of old and very old people for collective and planetary crisis. Yet I do. And I do it with this small graph. It's nothing special, but it gives a lot of information, and I think a lot of food for thought, because it's about consciousness as the evolutionary potential of aging. And here in this graph, we have on the vertical line, we have the potential for development, and on the horizontal, the lifespan. And this violet graph that you can see there describes that what we normally understand about development in aging, but it describes the physical development. It is a steep increase in our early years, and we have the pinnacle of our physical abilities, of our bodily strength. We have around 30 years. And from that, there's an increasing development of the physical strength, capacities, and so on. And of course, it ends with zero, with the death of this bodily existence. And even when we have a lot of research about anti-aging medicine, I don't think that we can push it far out and come into this fantasized goal of living forever, because we would not reach this, in my understanding, on the bodily level. There will be some huge shifts of consciousness necessary before. So, but there is a green graph, and this is a potential for consciousness development in aging. And when I talk about consciousness development, I talk more about sensing, getting a sense of this word, not just thoughts, not just the mind, it's above that. And I refer a little bit to the work of Sri Aurobindo. It's the level of the spirit, or the state of consciousness, the stage of consciousness of the spirit, what comes behind or above the mind. So this potential is increasing, and there's not necessarily a decrease in aging and at old age, even when it could be that the complexity goes down a little bit. I'm doing some research with a colleague of mine about that. But my most positive vision about aging is that we die at the highest point of our consciousness development. And yeah, so this is just a short impression of that. And then I ask now, and I'm now a little bit, yeah, it's both. It's individual and collective, and we have to see both perspectives at the same time. I ask, what is the contribution of the elder, the old, and the very old in times of collective crisis? And we have to see really that these are three groups. The elder, we often talk about the elder, and we as the elderly, we are, of course, we are in public, we are responsible, we take our responsibility and try to do our work. But I also wanted to point to the old and the very old, because they also have a responsibility, especially in these times, but they always had. And the old and very old means the 80, the 90 years old, the centenarians, the 100 years old, or there's a fast growing group in this word. These are the super centenarians. They have their own category now. They are the 110 years and older. So what is with them? Are they responsible for our world crisis? I want to ask the question. So in my understanding, and I'm coming from not only from gerontology, I'm coming also from the field of consciousness development, adult development or ego development. And in my understanding, it is about growing into the full, mature, self-transcending consciousness as a source of knowledge and wisdom beyond egocentric, materialistically orientation. And this is individually, but I think you can relate to that. There's also a collective aspect. We are really in some way in an egocentric, materialistically society at the moment. And this orientation is aligned with the well-being of humanity, the entire biosphere and the planet, all the way to an opening of consciousness towards the noosphere and above. And this is nothing that I have invented. This maturing to higher stages is described by, for example, Carl Rogers. This is this full mature expression of adulthood. He called the fully functioning person. In relation to spiritual development, James Fowler named this at the universal faith, and in particularly, it's also described in the various approaches to adult development. I know three approaches there quite well. This is the work of Suzanne Cook-Reuter, and the work of Terry F. Fallon, and the work of a friend of mine here in Germany, Roman Angerer. And these are the highest stages of adult development. They are called the autonomous or the synergist, the construct-aware or the ego-aware, or the unitive stage. And yes, in my understanding, it's about going the path into these higher stages and doing the work into this mature expressions, this mature embodiment of a human being, of an old and very old human being. And another aspect I want to invite you to think about is the aspect of gerotranscendence. This means that people who reach or have already realized these levels of consciousness I referred to before They have allowed the readiness to grow and mature within themselves that can serve the evolutionary transformation of humanity. They possess the capacity for geotranscendence, as it is described by Lars Tornström. It was a Swedish gerontologist. And geotranscendence is defined through an increasing awareness of the cosmic dimension that far exceeds the conventional worldview, and the willingness to transcend the self, to increasingly let go of personal identity. And I think this is the most important thing in times of crisis, its desire for one's own significance. So I always have a hypothesis. I had one for dementia, and this is a little bit more, how to prevent collective dementia. For me, consciousness development, as I have described it before in this adult developmental models, and the conscious dissolution of the self, in my understanding, is the evolutionary potential of aging. And this can have a huge impact onto the collective crisis. So I brought again this picture with me. I have showed this the last time when I talked about dementia, and we have been there more on the left side of this graph, and this time it's more going to the right side. This is how I imagine different manifestations of conscious development in aging. I refer here to this pre-personal consciousness, personal consciousness, and transpersonal consciousness. I refer here to Ken Wilber. And the personal consciousness, the I, the self, or the fully embodied personal narrative, the fully embodied self-awareness is for me what is the fully developed personal consciousness, and that what Carl Rogers meant with the fully functioning person. And from there I have here just sketched 4 manifestations of consciousness. Of course, there can be a lot of more differentiation, but I think for now it's enough like that. And on the left side, there is a person with dementia. This is a manifestation of consciousness development on the level of pre-personal consciousness. They are shown by an increasing, they are characterized by an increasing disorientation in the word, in one's own person. And that's again this increasing disorientation in the word. That is the collective aspect too. We all are in some way at the moment increasingly disorientated in the word, and I think also a lot of us in one's own person. Who am I in this strange word any longer? But this is here the individual is the person with dementia. It's a dissolution of the personal identity, but the unconscious dissolution of the personal identity, and it's the withdrawal into personal consciousness. And then we have the aging or the older person, and I think this is I think I said that last time, the gravitational field of old and very old people at the moment in the world. It's a little bit pre-personal consciousness, and it's part of the personal consciousness. It's really this growing in old age, growing into the personal consciousness. But I would say in the first half of that, it's not fully embodied. And we have there an activity on continuity orientation and increasing withdrawal and disengagement. These are all classical gerontological theories about aging. We have the activity theory, the continuity theory, and the disengagement theory. In this aging or older person, there's a clinging to the persona or the self-identity and its materialistic consciousness. And in this materialistic consciousness, there is, in my understanding, a huge trigger for this collective dementia process we are in at the moment. And then there is a second half of this personal consciousness manifestation, and that I would call the wise person or the elder. And we're talking a lot of these elders. I think most of them we can locate somewhere there. And it's between the personal and the transpersonal. These people are moving. There is a development in them. It's an increasing fulfillment and detachment from one's own role or persona. It's an increasing geotranscendence and humanistic consciousness. And then we have that, what I call, this is a little bit my theory now, the transcendent being in old age, that has more and more developed or embodied a transpersonal consciousness. There is a dissolution of the personal identity going on, the same as in a person with dementia, but this is a conscious dissolution. It's an increasing realization of the highest self, and this is for me one potential of the elders in times of collective crisis, connecting with the highest self, and they're more and more connected with cosmic consciousness. So, yeah, these are. This is my last slide. This is aging in times of collective crisis. Some questions I've asked myself: what is a result of that? What can we do? And I think there are a lot of questions, and I really want to ask the 80, the 90, the 100 years old, asking themselves these questions. How can I, or we as elders, old and very old, serve the whole? How can we as elders, awaken to the divine nature of this existence? What is my higher calling, my purpose? And this is an interesting question. I don't know if so many people ask a centenarian what is his purpose in life, but they have a lack of purpose, a lot of them. So I think we really should ask these questions. What is a divine impulse that is woven into me? This is my understanding, that we all are some kind of divine impulse that wants to be enfolded. Which personal and collective shadows remain to be seen and integrated by me? And there's again, this is one very important question, especially in times of collective crisis and collective dementia. We are projecting our unconscious shadows onto our world, and so we are responsible for doing the shadow work and becoming aware what kind of world we are projecting. And then what still wants to unfold through my being? And the last question, I think this is important, is when do I let go? So yeah, thanks for listening. Here are some of the sources. If you want to look back later, you find more about my work. There's my website, bettinawichers.de, and if you like to support my research about dementia and the dissolution of the self, I'm happy if you find my PayPal account. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Bettina. Very rich material. Let's just dive in. I'm taking in, 50 million people with dementia and 10 million entering into that phenomenon each year. Let me just start with a kind of a very simple, almost physical question, and then we're going to get into more of the stages of evolutionary possibility. There's a lot of data that indicates that many of the drugs that big pharma is distributing to people as they age are actually causing dementia. There's a lot of evidence that, for example, the COVID vaccines, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, triggered dementia. There was someone in the chat that indicated that happened to her father. So how do you, in your work, both differentiate between sort of, I would say, physical causes of dementia, given the pharmacology that is out there, and sort of psycho-emotional dementia? Are they the net of the net? Are they the same or are they different? How do you understand dementia within that frame of question?
This has totally changed in my life. until last time I told about my story, and it's really until that I was questioning the biomedical narrative, but I still bought it because I didn't have a better explanation. But I always was aware that there's something on the psychological level. So, but there was no evidence, because the pharmaceutical industry is really so strong, and that's always about that. And I worked as a clinical supervisor for many years, and it's always first about medication. So,
Yeah.
and it took a while until I understood that what is happening there, because you can't read a lot officially. You have to dig for the sources. And today I would really recommend step away from the antidementiva. They're not helpful. And I learned that at the university. So our professor said that openly, but they're still used. And there's a new medical drug at the moment, I can't remember the name, lecamap. And I listened to a professor of the University of Erlangen, where I studied gerontology some weeks ago, and he showed all the data, and he said it's really expensive. It's really expensive, and it helps just 10 or 15% of all people with dementia, because it doesn't help women, it doesn't help people with a special allele. And so at the end, 10 to 15 percent of the people, but they are selling it, and it's about selling. It's about money, and
Of course.
it's not helpful. So it's known. And this, interestingly, shortly before Corona came up and all these vaccinations, most of the pharmaceutical companies who did dementia research about dementia drugs, they retreated from that. All in 2019. You can go back 2018, 2019. A lot of companies stopped their research about Alzheimer drugs. And it was a little bit coincidental. I don't know. And yeah, they don't. I can't read the chat. It's for me. It's too much. I'm sorry. But someone wrote it that they don't address the underlying causes. Don't do that. But what is the underlying cause? And this is, for me, of course, I have a new theory, because I say it's not the biomedical thing first. It's this process, this dissolution process. So, and that what we see are the biomedical symptoms, that is the consequence. Because when I'm sitting and when I've stopped thinking, or when I don't do my shadow work, and I have always to push away the thoughts that are coming up, or when I'm sitting there and life is becoming slower and slower and slower, I'm sitting with all the lies of my life, and I still have to find stories for relating to all the big lies in my life. I once read that somewhere, and someone said dementia is a product of all the lies you had in your life. You are not able to fix them any longer. And it's a kind of collapse. I like this. Of course, there's no real evidence for that, but I like this thought. So it's really a lot about shadow work. It's not this, we don't know why it is coming.
Right. Well, let's probe that for a moment. If dementia is the result of all the lies in one's life that are not dealt with. You also mentioned that dementia is also a response to all the lies in the culture that one cannot deal with. So there's something about dementia that is I would say, a faulty response, an unhealthy response to the lie, what Zarathustra called the lie.
To the lies.
Say more about that, because that's fascinating. You know, that how many older people die with so many regrets.
With regrets, and at the end, no if they would be able to feel and sense their regrets, it would be helpful for them. But they have to also to push away the regrets all the time. And so it becomes more and more, it is really, we have this tangles, this proteins in the brain. They're always shown at that should be the reason for dementia. But I think really that's just like, it's just chaos in the brain. And I don't think about the brain in this physical reality any longer. Yeah, but all the thoughts and the whole story of life, it's not linear, it's not smooth, it's not healthy, and we can't. Oh, I'm lacking some words. Sorry. Yeah, we are not able to hold this complexity of stories and lies we told ourselves and all the other people any longer. And this is the same what is happening in the world, especially with this corona and these COVID vaccinations. And the lies are really, we are sticking in all the lies. We can't see any longer. And this is also a part of this collective dementia process. We are confused.
Yeah.
There's no truth any longer. Where is the truth in my life? Where's the truth in the world?
Right.
We don't know what to believe.
Yeah, and that's really important. That's a deep insight.
Yeah.
That dementia is ultimately an uncreative response to the lie of yourself and your life and the lie of the culture. And then that connects to what Otto Scharmer was saying about that part of the dementia at a collective level is a depression.
Yeah, a collective depression.
It's just that you kind of give up.
Yeah.
And don't think that you can make a difference, nor can you actually know what truth is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speak to us a little bit more about your understanding of the relationship between self-deception or the lie and depression. What's that linkage in your mind?
I'm not so good in explaining dementia, depression, but I think depression is part of that when you, and often depression comes before dementia. It's when you start to recognize that there's nothing of value in your life any longer. There's nothing what motivates you. You don't know the reason of your life. And this is, again, what is the purpose of my life? I think we really have to do this work. What is my purpose? Why am I here? And we are on this manifest level. We think we're a body, and this body has to function as long as possible, and that it will die. So a lot of people are still following this narrative. But we are spiritual beings. So there is a reason why everybody of us is here. And we're not used to do this work, to find out what is the reason, what is the impulse in me. Yeah. So,
exactly.
And due to this, this is an early disorientation, but at that time we're still functioning. We're just sitting, and dementia is not this being sad, the depression. It's really this no motivation any longer, no interest any longer, no reason to get up from bed in the morning. So it's really this is the beginning of the emptiness. There's no reason for this life any longer. And this continues later into dementia.
Well, and that hopelessness isn't confined to older people. You see it a lot in young people.
Yes. Yeah.
And in fact, it's an epidemic among the young, this sense of impending doom, this sense that nothing they can do will make any kind of a difference.
Yeah.
And that has a corrosive effect.
Yeah.
I mean, I would imagine you can succumb to some form of dementia as a young person. It doesn't have to wait till you're old.
There's children's dementia. Yeah, I have to read about. I can't tell a lot about it. It just came up in my thread
Yeah,
somewhere. But yes, and I think there is the Kali Yuga. There we can see the Kali Yuga. That it's really more and more like a thick blanket that is suppressing all life,
yeah,
all creativity, all happiness, because we don't understand this existence any longer. The
right.
narratives of our grandparents, they are not existing any longer.
Exactly.
The narratives our parents also not, and even not that I was raised in Germany during the inner German border. We lived 50 kilometers away from the inner German border, so I I was raised in a total different
Hmm.
world. This world is
Hmm.
not existing any longer. And
Hmm.
we have no real no trustful narratives. We have the narratives Netflix is giving us and Hollywood.
Yeah,
And this changes every day. And we have 4 times a year a new clothes we have to buy to be in. So there is no, this is collective dementia, all this. Netflix is a Netflix is a manifestation of this, of a drug that helps us into this.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
it's a
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit like the antidementivum.
yeah.
It says you will be happy and will be oriented when you watch all the day, but at the
Yeah,
end, there's no
yeah,
orientation in that.
yeah. And within this context, Janice Hall is making, I think, a very important point. Would love to have your response to as well. She's saying that an aspect of dementia is an inability to see the world systematically, to understand how the pieces all
Yeah,
fit together. Because whatever is happening out there, the false news and the fake news and the propaganda is also happening within the context of that which is also knowable, that which is also true, so that the one of the characteristics of self-protection in our world, where Netflix is a generator of dementia, shall we say, and the lie is pervading on the in the at the level of culture, we have to maintain the ability for holistic thinking,
yeah.
which includes that, but embeds the lie within the truth. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes, yes for that. But at the same time, I would like to add we are just looking in the outer world. And the main symptom of dementia, where it starts, is that I'm not oriented any longer in the outer world. And it starts with really, I'm not oriented in time any longer. I don't understand time.
Mhm.
And then the next is I don't know how to orient myself in the place where
Hmm.
I am. So it's really, it comes out of me. It is here, it's arising in me. It's not that that the word I don't understand. I think it's vice versa. It's both and. But the symptom is arising in me. I can't orient myself any longer in time,
Mm.
then in space or place, and then in the situation.
Right. So it's a loss of connection to time and space.
I would say it's a loss of construction. I'm not able to construct my word any longer. And so I'm getting more and more disoriented. I can't
Gotcha.
make sense out of my
Yeah.
word any longer.
Yeah. There you
Yeah,
go. There you
yeah,
go. Yeah, I think that's what Janice is pointing to
yeah,
ultimately is we have to maintain our capacity in a completely confused world
yeah,
to make some kind of sense out of it.
yeah,
And when we can no longer make sense,
yeah,
we lose a capacity to orient ourselves in time and space. And the work the our mind, our health depends on a holism.
yeah,
When that breaks down, dementia is fed.
yeah.
Yeah.
And word, this is in adult development, we have this construct awareness. This is a very high stage of adult development. And this shows this very well when we have to construct our word. But we don't recognize this in the early stages. We are always constructing. Our mind is doing the story.
Mm.
It's not that there's outside the word, and we are constructing it in interaction, of course. And we are overwhelmed. We have no reason any longer for why. There's no explanation. There's no good reason for living. If we have watched 8 hours TV and then we go to sleep and wake up in the morning and there's no sense really. There's no. And then we stop constructing our word. We just let ourselves be constructed from the outer world, and this is not helpful.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think, I'm just thinking about it, humanity rising is the antidote to dementia.
Yeah. This is, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a collective remedy, or it's a medication against collective dementia. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I want to go with our conversation. And just using humanity rising, as you were talking, I realized that there are 3 ingredients to humanity rising that I think, for me in my own personal life, is the way I make sense. One is we're trying to look at the multifariousness of the world. Like, today we're having it on dementia, tomorrow we have it on something else. And so we're always challenging ourselves to understand something new that we may not have encountered before. And I think that curiosity about the world, that learning different things as an exciting proposition, that's one of the things that makes me most excited. People wonder, how can you convene for nearly 4 years or however long, day after day after day? And I say it's because I'm learning so much. I'm learning from you right now. And so that's an important thing. And then the second thing is, and people kind of get used to it from me, I'm always challenging the official narrative, whether it was on COVID, whether it's on Palestine, whether it's on Ukraine, whether we're doing it right now. You're challenging the official narrative, the biomedical narrative about dementia. So I think there's a certain rebelliousness, there's a certain revolutionary quality that is necessary so that when I was a young man, there was a bumper sticker, question authority. And then another bumper sticker is, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's a certain radical nature to the anti-dementia medication. And then thirdly, which is the most wonderful in some ways, is the community. The Stan and Shannon, even Janice that just wrote the question. I love these people, and we're a community that is navigating the chaos in a way that is loving one another. And so I think that the community, the curiosity, the willingness to challenge authority and to look at new points of view, that's what I think makes humanity rising alive. And I think that's, as I understand it from what you were saying earlier, is part of the qualities that one needs to cultivate in order not to succumb to the dementia that's pressing upon us from the big pharma to the real world. What would be your comment?
First, yes. I totally agree. And you are talking from a very privileged position. And all the people who are sitting here today in the community, they're all listening from a very privileged position.
Good point.
Yeah. And a lot of people have not the capacities to listen to both of us and to understand what we are talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this was the case, especially in the COVID times. A lot of people haven't had the ability to understand what all the facts, and especially on having the ambiguity that was needed for surviving in that time. So yes, for you, for your community, for people around me, this is really, really a good not a good, it's a perfect path. It's not all, because we are not doing shadow work here. I think you need, this is an important part. But most, I would say, the most elder and very old and very old people, we can't reach them. How do we do that? And they are constructing this collective dementia with us. Yeah.
By the way, Swaha, it just put something really cool in the chat saying that her bumper sticker is question everything. You know, when we were young, it was question authority. But Swaha, you're right. Now we have to question everything.
Everything.
And because you never know where the
Yeah.
lie's coming in.
Yeah.
You never know where the deception's being fostered. And let's turn. And by the way, Rosemary Fitzpatrick said she agrees that Humanity Rising keeps her on her toes at 90. So well
Yeah.
done, Rosemary. It
Yeah.
keeps me on my toes too.
Yeah.
So thank you for that affirmation. But Bettina, let's turn to this central notion of yours around shadow.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the relationship between shadow and dementia, and what's the proper attitude toward our shadow content individually and collectively that we need to also foster.
I the first impulse comes out of my work when I was a clinical supervisor, and I heard a lot of dementia stories. I accompanied a lot of people in the nursing homes, and you always, when you work there, and you get the whole story, not the whole story, but you get a lot of stories from them, and especially their marriages, their relationships. You get everything what you never wanted to hear about that, because the person with dementia is talking, and the relative who is oriented is often very ashamed, and there comes a lot of the cheating. I've heard a lot about cheating. It came up in the dementia process. They have never talked. She was always suspicious, but had no hint, not really facts. And then he went into dementia. And then suddenly he named her with the name of the other woman. So this is one part. So it comes up. I would say clean your marriage or your relationships before dementia, because then it's too late.
Yeah.
You're then tied to each other. And that's sometimes
Gotcha. Yeah.
and sometimes it's really, they're not nice stories. I had really loving relationships. I witnessed loving relationships where the woman cared beautifully for her husband, or the husband for his wife. But I witnessed a lot of other stories, and this is the most obvious thing. Yeah, and all these, when the dementia continues in the moderate or late stage, then people are more and more reduced and more authentic in their expression, and then you get the stories. You always see it's unresolved shadow. They didn't had psychotherapy that would be helpful, and they didn't work on their own, because we can't go all so much to psychotherapy for such a long time to psychotherapists as we have all shadows. So psychotherapy is always a good start, but then we have to continue on our own. And in my understanding, it's never, we can never stop with that.
Right.
Yeah.
And this working on the shadow is all about apology and forgiveness. You know, we have to tell the truth, but then we need to apologize for whatever cheating or lying that we did in that instance. And so self-forgiveness and forgiveness of
Self-forgiveness.
other and the willingness to own our
Yeah.
lies.
Yeah.
All of us lie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so embedded.
Yeah.
How are you today? Oh, I'm fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lie.
It's a lie.
Unless you
Yeah.
really are fine. But most
Yeah.
of us had a bad day or whatever, but we're always projecting a certain persona out there in the world to keep the lies private.
I can't answer this question any longer. When someone asks me, "How are you?" I say, "I don't know. What do you want to hear?" Yeah, because it's always a
Yeah,
long story. It's not
yeah,
this.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
and
uh,
I think as you said something that's really important. We have to be self-compassionate,
yeah.
because these are the biggest lies. It's not the cheating or that we have stolen something, but it's that where we cheated ourselves. And we did this day after day after day, and we didn't got the job we wanted, and we didn't got the partner we wanted, and we didn't earn so much money as we always, all this.
Mhm.
I'm doing this very radically, and sometimes I think it's exhausting, but there always comes something up.
Mhm.
And the good thing is it goes faster. It's more smooth now, recognizing, oh, it's shadow, and sometimes it's a day crying, and sometimes it's just recognizing and letting go. But yes, I think this is really, and this is, yeah, this is there we have the collective thing again. Here in Germany with this COVID years, we have so huge collective political shadows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And in the United States, the shadow is
Yeah.
now bursting out and is
Yeah.
taken over the presidency.
Yeah.
And we're going to be having to live with, in some ways, conscious shadow,
Yeah.
unapologetic deportation of 1 million undocumented aliens, as they're called, the assault on women's sovereignty. This is all shadow content, unresolved shadow content that builds up over time and contributes to the dementia at a collective level.
Yeah.
And it's so that the personal qualities of self-care.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd like to, as we draw our conversation to the beginnings of a close, I'd like to have you really talk to us. What have you learned over the years you've been studying this, that what we can do personally, maybe beginning with shadow, dealing with one's shadow, but what would be some practices that you would recommend to people to ensure that dementia doesn't happen to them?
I don't want to go this path because it's too complex. But I can say
Okay.
that some things are, in my understanding, helpful. And this is really
Yeah.
shadow work. This is really, who am I? It's really this spiritual question. Who am I? For me, dementia prevention is now a spiritual work or a work of consciousness. We don't have to put it this spiritual, yeah. The work on who am I? Who is this existence? Going this path. Because
Mhm.
when I know who this is, and I will never find an answer, but I can continue with this work, and then I will read the Bhagavad Gita or whatever, and I will understand more and more and more about the nature of this existence. And when more and more people are talking about the spiritual aspects of our being,
Mm.
then we then we can connect with each other on this level, and it becomes natural that we are confused. It becomes natural that we are getting more and more forgetful in old age, because it's not necessary any longer. My story is more and more closing. And when my story goes to the end, I don't have to recognize all the neighbors, the names, the birthdays of my grandchildren or my cousins' daughters or something like that. And understanding this humanness in this process and letting go. That was the last sentence in my text for today. The last moment, or the biggest gift we can give for humanity in times of crisis, is knowing when it's time to let go.
Yes.
We had this last time when you talked about your mother. This was such a beautiful story when you told that she asked, "What can I do? I don't want to live," and that
Yeah.
then you asked someone, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
then she had just some days after someone told you, "Yeah, you can go. It's easy."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is,
Letting go is
yeah,
a high art form.
yeah,
And again, it runs counter to our acquiring world, where the more you acquire and don't let go, you somehow become rich. But it's the capacity to live the Tao, where you just bring it in, let it go.
yeah,
It's going with the flow of life,
yeah,
is what you're really saying,
yeah,
but in a conscious way of always deepening your journey into your own self.
yeah,
Yeah. And you know, what's coming up for me, Bettina, I'm really getting more deeply this time, is the impact of the lie. I keep coming back to the lie that we tell ourselves, that we're told. And there's some relationship between letting go of the lie that frees up the psyche for the kind of creativity and self-awareness
yeah,
that is required to age graciously and holistically. Because when you're 60, 70 years of age, you've encrusted yourself with so many lies. It's like the barnacles on the bottom of a ship that just finally just smother things, and then you're encrusted in something that negates the very life force you're trying to maintain. So I'm really appreciating this notion of the lie,
yeah.
and how we have to and the relationship between the shadow and the lie. And if we don't understand that and we don't let go of it, we become susceptible to dementia. Would that be accurate?
Yes, just one impulse more at
Yeah.
that point, because this is all when you put it together, there came my idea of that dementia is also a dark night of the soul,
Mm.
because these lies and these shadows, they're dark. We are living more and more in the darkness, and dementia in some way is really, it becomes more and more dark. We can't see any longer where we are heading. We don't understand this word any longer.
Yeah.
And in some way, it's this out of the dark, going through this darkness, accepting the darkness, accepting the disorientation, accepting, really surrender to this. I don't understand this word any longer.
Mm. Mm.
I think this is what um, uh, Otto Schama a little bit is pointing, and
Yeah.
Gabor Mate. It's really, we have to let go. We are really, consciousness is really shifting. The mind is just a tool. It's not that what will help us in the future. It will be on a different level. It will be a total different intensity. And yeah, so
Brilliant. Bettina, thank you so much. You are a deeply wise woman on
Thank
these
you.
matters. And in a world where dementia is now an epidemic at
Mm.
all ages,
Yeah.
how we protect ourselves from that and how we navigate through in a way that brings light into the darkness is a high art form in spiritual practice. And you've really pointed the way. I hope down the trail you can come back and keep our dialogue going.
Yeah, I would like to.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bettina will join the after chat, everyone, if you want a deeper dive with her. But this will bring our program to a close for today. You'll see the link in the chat box that Stan is just putting in. You receive the link in your Zoom reminders for today. And then on Monday, we're going to explore the notion of mystic monasteries. What does it mean to have a monastery not separate from the world, but in the middle of the world? I think that has a lot to do with what Bettina's been talking about. So thank you, Bettina. Thank you, everyone. Bye
Thank
for
you.
now.
Bye.